my name is Julie Walters. I was the senior project manager for Technicamps, and now I'm working in digital for Swansea University. And we really glad that you came on today to learn more about what LinkedIn is up to, but also just to join the network in the different things that we're doing. So we're trying to encourage women in IT, and everybody's in IT these days in some way or another. There's no way that you can avoid technology. And we've seen that more than ever since the pandemic has been on. And what we're trying to do is encourage those who are really interested to become role models for us as well in the Technicamps programme. The Technicamps programme is about encouraging everybody really to get into digital and to upskill. But in particular, we spend a lot of time working with the younger end of the demographic, with their children and in schools and in education, trying to upskill teachers and pupils in everything digital, to get them right grassroots into coding, into programming, and really to be excited about the digital revolution that's going on. So that's where we're at the moment. We're also working on lots of lovely programs. We've got a degree apprenticeship, and I'm glad to see Maria here representing the degree apprenticeship, which is a fully funded program at the moment, offering a advanced software engineering degree in conjunction with the employer. So fantastic program that we're running there. So spread the word on that, because there may be somebody in your organisation or somebody that you know who might be interested in doing that. And Maria's always up for talking to somebody about that, aren't you? Yeah. Today is supposed to be a conversation as well. Yeah. So Maria, if you want to say anything about the degree apprenticeship, you're always welcome. Do you want to say anything?
No, we've been running this for quite a few years now, and we will hopefully carry on running it for many years to come. I could just briefly mention, if I may, we are just about to launch now as well shorter courses, micro-credentials, which is modular courses. A lot of them would be part of what we also deliver on the degree apprenticeship, but you can do the courses as standalone. So we will be sending out a lot more information on that in the next couple of days. So, and it will be posted on the Technicamps website as well. So there will be information there if you're interested.
Okay. And for those who have not been involved with Technicamps at all, it's a program that's been going since 2003. So let's do my maths now, 18 years. Wow. It goes so fast. And, it's really started, grassroots, trying to encourage that digital upskilling, and has gone on from strength to strength. And although it's funded from various programs, from HEFU and also from European funding, it's always a need, and so there'll always be something that they're doing and being involved with and moving forward, I'm sure. So I'm going to hand over without too much further ado to Nicola Doherty. She is, and she's got a fab title, I like it. It's Head of Education in LinkedIn. Oh, what a great title. So she's going to tell us all about LinkedIn. I had a chat with her briefly, and I did actually see her on the Times Education Conference. And basically, I was surprised at how much LinkedIn was involved with. I always think of LinkedIn as a big CV platform, but it's so much more. And it'd be really interesting to find out more about what it is and how we can be involved. So over to you, Nicola.
Thanks very much, Julie, and great to see you all, either face to face or with the lovely pictures and avatars that I can see here on the Zoom screen. One thing that I do need to highlight from a housekeeping perspective is, because I work from home, I have a very active cockapoo in the background who wants to protect me from the postman every day, and I think he already arrived. I think we're safe, but just in case there is a delivery, I might be you might hear a little bit of noise in the background, but let's fingers crossed we don't get any disruption from Hamilton. Essentially, one of the reasons why with LinkedIn, why we're working within the education space, is that the LinkedIn's vision is around creating an economic opportunity for everybody. And for me, as an undergrad student, I read some article when I was coming close to graduation that talked about LinkedIn and about the power of LinkedIn, and I set up a profile way back in the early 2000s. and didn't realize just how much of an impact it was actually going to have on my life and my career thereafter, because most of the jobs that I personally got afterwards came from LinkedIn rather than through job boards. And a lot of opportunities would have been I would have been proactively approached for a lot of those chances that I may not necessarily have been across had I not been using the platform. So to Julie's point, LinkedIn has very much evolved away from a place where people are just kind of putting up their CV, or they're going there when they're looking to job seek. That would be kind of like a website like Indeed, for example, or my go-to years ago would have been jobs.ie in Ireland. But what people are doing now is using LinkedIn as a place where they connect with people that they've worked with, or with their wider network, colleagues from past jobs, or people they collaborate with in different universities across the UK, for example, people from university or their neighbours. It's a professional network where people come together in that respect. But you've also, it's where people come to learn, to research more about organizations or about individuals, and to learn skills. So, the LinkedIn Learning, for example, has a lot of content that is embedded there within LinkedIn.com itself. And so a lot of people will go there to take a course or to read some of the research that's published on LinkedIn. Most of the universities and a lot of academics across the UK in particular are using LinkedIn more and more as a place to publish their research and to share their work with a bigger audience outside the traditional academic circles. So there's a lot of different people use LinkedIn for different ways and for different reasons. But for today, what I'll very much kind of anchored on is for us as individuals and for us as educators, how can we really use LinkedIn as an individual basis to build their careers, but what guidance can we share with the young people in our lives to help them as well as they embark on their careers. As I was saying, so this is our mission, which is around creating economic opportunity for everybody. It's very much core to how we work. LinkedIn is a massively mission-orientated company, and so for the people that work within LinkedIn, it's much more about this than it is about hitting targets or closing business and all that kind of stuff that keeps the lights on. But everybody here in the company really wants to make an impact, and that's why we participate in sessions like this that can help. At times I would nearly put it down as like democratizing access to information. There's a lot of life is unfortunately who you know, and as a result what you know. And I think that for me in particular, coming from a very kind of economically depressed part of Ireland, there was, my network professionally at graduation was very small. And so I know that by using LinkedIn, I was able to access opportunities that I wouldn't have had, and information that I wouldn't have gotten organically before. And I do think that this is has a big advantage for people that do come from disadvantaged backgrounds to make the world a more equal place. So what we call the economic graph is essentially LinkedIn's digital representation. So if you think about what's on your LinkedIn profile, you have your work experience, you have where you worked, you have the jobs that you've done, you have how long you were there. And if you think then about a company, they have their employees that are there, the jobs that they are advertising for, who's working for them, for how long, what skills are they needing. And universities do the same, non-governmental organizations do the same. And what happens then is it creates this rich tapestry of information that there just doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, that gets updated in real time, because as people change jobs, they update their LinkedIn profile. As they get an educational qualification, they update their LinkedIn profile. So it's very much kind of a growing and evolving piece of data that is just, the most accurate representation of ultimately the economic, or actually not economic, of the economy, full stop. And so we call it the economic graph. Now, what that looks like today is there are 774 million members on LinkedIn at the moment. There's some mad statistic like 4 members join per second. That's how quickly that this is growing. I remember when I joined, I think we were sitting at 500 million members. That was nearly 5 years ago now. So quite a few seconds have passed since I joined. And in the UK, it's about 85 to 90% of the UK's labour market is on LinkedIn. So when you're thinking about who's using it and who's represented on the platform, it is very comprehensively mapped against the UK's actual labour market. And as a result, the job opportunities that come up within that labour market. We've got 58 million companies that's on the platform. So those are companies that have company pages that advertise their jobs on LinkedIn. At any given time, there's 14 million jobs. I actually think at the minute that's inaccurate because there are so many jobs currently being advertised. Because of the great resignation that we're seeing in the last number of months, where almost half of employees around the world are considering moving jobs within the next 12 months. And we're seeing attrition rates across industries now incredibly high at, rates of about 20%. So there's a lot of churn at the moment from an employee perspective. So there's at least, I would say, 14 million jobs on average, but that is quite much higher now. Then in terms of skills, we have a skills taxonomy that matches the explicit skills that people put on their profile, but also the implied skills that role would have. So for example, if you are a digital marketing manager, you can assume that the digital marketing manager knows how to do SEO and SEM, even if they don't explicitly put it as a skill on their profile. So we're able to match that again. And then we have 120,000 universities across the world who also are represented, and their alumni are captured within the platform. And then on a daily basis, this is annual because that would be quite a lot on a daily basis. There are 443 billion posts or feed updates every year. And what that is often is that's people sharing their opinions there. It's sharing information. It's sharing their academic research papers, for example, or successes that they're having at work. So it's a lot of information that's shared. In the context of that, this is where it's important to have your LinkedIn profile and to have it up to date, because by being involved in the network, you have on your doorstep virtually a lot access to a lot of opportunities. And so if you are engaging with people, if you are engaging with organizations, if you are active, you will get there's a virtuous cycle to it, in that you will see organically opportunities relevant to you come up in your feed, but you will also, people will start reaching out to you for opportunities that they think are aligned to your skills and your experience. So if I stop there and kind of change gears and we talk to your profile itself. So basically, the way to think about your LinkedIn profile is it's not a CV. It's a digital portfolio that represents you and your professional brand. So it's all about highlighting, your experience and skills in an engaging way. It lets you tell the story. And there's a number of kind of features that I would call out that have the most impact. I'll talk to them here now. So the first one is about adding a photo. So people who have a photo on their profile get significantly more attention than somebody that doesn't. And by attention, what I mean is like connection requests, profile views, so 21 times more profile views if you have a photo versus if you don't, and 36 times more messages. So most of those messages would be emails from recruiters, for example, or from potential hiring managers who see your skill set and are interested in potentially talking to you about a role within their team or organization. That would be the majority of the outreach or not the majority, but I would say that's a significant component of the contact that I would get. But I would also get outreach from people who are interested in working with us, or who've seen me or part of my team speaking at events and they want to learn more. It's a way of kind of interacting with somebody without necessarily knowing their email address, and having a photo so that they can validate that, oh, that is the person I was talking to, or that is the person that I see, helps. But it's also the way that it comes up when you don't have a photo. It can look like it's an empty profile, like, or it's one that was created and half left. So that's why I would kind of suggest putting the photo in. It has a big impact. The other thing I would call out is it doesn't need to be a professional headshot. So it can be something that the app is great. You just take the photo on your app. I would suggest getting somebody to take the picture for you, because the selfie shots are not necessarily the ones that may not necessarily be the brand that you want to get across, the way that you want to come across professionally. So I would suggest getting somebody to take the picture for you. I need to update mine because I've the one I have is quite out of date at this stage. But because I've put on the COVID kilos, I'm trying to wait until maybe after Christmas, and I've trimmed down a little bit before I take the picture again. But that's just me. So the second one then is recording your name. So this is a new function that just came out, but it's a game changer for anybody who has one that is difficult for particularly a Western audience to understand. So for any Irish people with an Irish name, for example, the Siobhans, the Neves of the world, they're well used to be called Siobahan or Niam, or, because their name does not sound phonetically the way that it's spelled. This is a great way to be able to highlight to people that this is how your name is pronounced. So it's just simply by recording, again on the app, recording you saying your name, and then for anybody who comes across your profile, they can see, oh, this is, it'll give you a little prompt, to hear the name, and it means that people are able to quickly see this is the way that you want to be addressed. So that's a super easy one, but really impactful for people who aren't lucky enough to have a simple name like Nicola Doherty that it's difficult to mispronounce. The other one is the pronouns. So again, this is new functionality that just came out. It started in the UK earlier this year. 70% of job seekers believe that it's important that recruiters and hiring managers address them using their correct pronouns. And we know now these days that you can never assume somebody's pronouns just simply by seeing them. And I think that this is a function that's really important to me, because I have a trans family member in my house, and I know how much it means to them when they're able to highlight the pronouns that they want people to use in a way that's not necessarily putting the burden on them. So this is a really easy way that people, and particularly allies, can highlight the way that what their pronouns are and how they want to be addressed in a subtle way on their LinkedIn profile. So it's in the intro section, as you can see there. And all it does is ask, what pronouns do you want, how do you want your pronouns to be showcased on the profile, and there's a wee drop down menu, and you just pick from there. And this is all just on the main profile page. The next one then is creating your cover story. Now this came out in the summer. I have not updated mine yet. So this is about what is it they say? Do as I say, not as I do. This comes down to the COVID kilos again. I'm trying to, actually, I think that was because the hairdressers were cut. It was lockdown hair time at that stage. And I looked like Ringo Starr from the Beatles. So I thought this wasn't the time to make this video. So going through this presentation has reminded me I need to go and do this myself. But what it is it's a great 30-second video that you record on your mobile, and you can use that. Again, this is a digital representation of you. It's your portfolio. It's your story of you. You can use that 30-second video to explain any part of you that you want. So if you want to give an overview of, I'm Nicola Doherty, I've worked in education for the last 10 years, I'm a manager at LinkedIn, and I work with universities all across EMEA and LATAM to help them support their students on the path to employability. That could be one. Another one could be, I'm Nicola Doherty, I'm a people manager. I love motivating and inspiring people that work for me. I also love kayaking at the weekend and long walks in the countryside. It's whatever way you want to represent yourself. There's no wrong answers. So it's an optional field that's there. You simply record yourself on your mobile. And what happens is that when somebody goes onto your page, where your profile picture is, they'll see your profile picture first, and then it'll change to the video, will autoplay then after a second, just like it's doing there in the slide. And then after your snippet is finished, it goes back to your profile picture. But it's a really nice way to just catch somebody's eye, particularly if you're job seeking at the time, because it can be a great elevator pitch for you as a professional. The other thing then I would call out is adding your industry. So when you're building out your profile, as you can see here, it specializes in industry. It's so important, not necessarily for people who are viewing your profile, but for recruiters who are searching for people. If you're in the position where you're considering a new job opportunity, or that you are open to making a move in the coming years, recruiters will use industry as a search criteria to narrow down who they're looking for. And so we have 300,000 searches each week using industry as a field. So super important that if you are looking for a new opportunity, have your industry up to date, because that's one of the ways that they're going to look for it. Now, on the flip side, let's say you're currently working in education, but you want to transition into working in a technology role, for example, or just into a different industry altogether. You decide that here, I prefer working with horses, and I want to actually, I don't know why I picked that as an industry. I'm taking myself down a very niche route here. But if you want to work in medical science, let's say you want to work in biomedical science, if one way to potentially get seen by more recruiters who are looking for people already in the biomedical science is to update your industry to reflect the industry that you want to work in as well, rather than necessarily the one that you are currently working in. So that's just something to be conscious of, is that if you are a job seeker and you're looking to move industry, that would be a field that I would suggest updating to the industry you want to work in. And if you want to remain within your existing industry, make sure that it's up to date and that you are using that field, because it's very impactful from a recruiter perspective. The other thing that came up, and this was actually a function that we created as COVID broke out and there was a lot of redundancies across the world, with a lot of people impacted by furlough. Our engineers quickly built open to work button, and what it meant was that for people who had recently lost their jobs, they were able to highlight and signal to people that they were open to working. Now, it works in two ways. There's a public way to do it, which is if you want to signal to your network that you're open to work, then it is visible on your profile. It shows this little kind of picture underneath your profile picture to show that you're actively looking for new opportunities. But there's another way to do it, which is what most people do, which is to say that, you know, for people who are currently in a job and they might be very happy in that job, but they are interested in exploring new opportunities, or they're open to having discussions with people about new opportunities, you can go onto your profile and you can click open to work. And what it will ask is, what job titles are you interested in doing? So you can see here, you know, this person chose they want to be a senior accountant. For me, for example, I could say I want to be a sales director, or I want to be a VP of sales, or I want to work in something like that. And then it'll ask you for up to 5 job locations. And remote is one of those job locations now. We're seeing a lot of remote jobs being advertised on the platform. So that means that, you can indicate, I'm open to talking to somebody about these types of jobs in these specific locations. And you can then make that visible, but to recruiters only. So if, for example, if I had turned that on, a recruiter from Google could see when they're looking for sales managers, they might see, oh, Nicola Doherty, she's open to work, she's looking for a sales director role in Dublin. I have one of those roles, I'm going to reach out to her. So you've got that, you're just basically getting on people's radar more. And so that's why people who do use this, they're 40% more likely to be noticed by recruiters than people that don't. Let me think, is there anything else to say on that one there? The other thing to call out is that some people do get nervous about using this because they think that it's that they could come up on searches of their existing employers, and so it might look like they're not committed to the company or organization that they're already working in. LinkedIn is very much a members first organization, so it's you as an individual member that we will always prioritize in how we work. So for recruiter, the commercial recruiter products that employers purchase to support their own recruitment, they will not see if you're open to work for any existing employees. So for example, if I had hypothetically turned this on my profile, none of the LinkedIn hiring managers or recruiters would see that I'm open to work. So just kind of calling that out because it can make some people a wee bit nervous. The other thing then is I always think about your LinkedIn profile is, I would think about it nearly like, you know how they say in a CV that, the shorter the better because people's attention span is getting smaller and smaller these days. And so that's why they recommend your CV shouldn't be no more than 2 pages in length. And that on average, a recruiter will spend maximum 90 seconds scanning through your CV. The most important piece of real estate is always the top. So the most important place to update in LinkedIn is the top. And that's where your summary is so important. This is the thing that, this is the place where on average, they're going to spend more time on. So, this is where you would put that summary about you, your elevator pitch, like I was saying before with the video. This is a way of representing this in with words rather than with a video. So highlight, your career accomplishments, highlight, what's special about you, what have you done, what unique talents do you have, and how do you want to contribute to, in terms of your career, whether within your own organization or in the wider world. And this is very much, like I said, your elevator pitch. So this is where I find people get stuck, because it's hard sometimes when you're looking at a blank piece of paper and you're like, oh, what am I going to write? It's much easier to go the bullet points of all the things that we do day to day. But this is so valuable. So this is the place where you want to invest that time. For me, because writing is not something I'm naturally gifted at, I would check out a couple of other people's LinkedIn profiles and look for bits of inspiration that, in terms of like the way that they've formatted it or the way that they've kind of structured it, and then be able to take what you think works really well for yourself and modify it, obviously for your own profile. But that's where I tend to go if I ever get stuck. But this is worth pushing through and doing it because it's super impactful. Then the feature content is a great one. If you're somebody that not to use you as an example, Julie, but I'm sure that you do a lot of posts, or you would do a lot of things that you would want to share as part of your work, both in your day job, but also with the work that you're doing with Technocamps, for example. This is a great place in which you can highlight that type of content, because you curate this yourself. You can put all of the posts that you're making, you can highlight them so that as people, again, this is at the top of the LinkedIn profile, so the most valuable real estate that people are going to see. So this is a great place to be pinning some of the content that you've created, or some of your accomplishments that you want people to see as they go through your profile. The important thing I would highlight is photos, media. Is way more impactful. So, try and make sure that there's images included within that there. And the other thing that I would say, particularly from an academic perspective, we are seeing, I don't have the exact statistics, but we're seeing a massive amount of academics on LinkedIn sharing their research and sharing, posting their opinion pieces on LinkedIn itself. And so, that's a lot of academics that I speak to work on the assumption that actually that there isn't a large academic population on LinkedIn, but it's actually incredibly significant, and the views that they see are often in excess of what they would see in more academic circles. So it's very much something to consider as you're creating research or posting content. In terms of your work experience, so obviously as you're going through your LinkedIn profile, this is where you're adding in your individual work experience. What I would suggest is that making sure that it's not so much bullet points about like the things that we do day to day. Ideally, it would be a summary of, if the organization is quite new, or it's a startup and you wouldn't be necessarily familiar with the work that they do, maybe include a little summary of that within the space, like start from there, and then explain what your role was in it, and also highlight the accomplishments or the wins that you've had. So for example, for me as a sales professional, with LinkedIn, I wouldn't need to explain LinkedIn, but I may want to explain what does my department do, or what do we engage with. So I would say that my department, I work with universities and education customers across EMEA and LATAM, and that we sell LinkedIn Learning, talent solutions, etc. And then what I might do is just give a description of like, what does my role responsibility summed up into like 40 words. And then might talk about some of my accomplishments. We grew the business from X% to X%. We've gone from 5 people to 600 people. That's not a real number, just but that's the way that you should kind of frame it. And then when you're applying for work, then that's where you submit your actual CV, but this will give them on your LinkedIn profile a really good summary of the work that you were doing within that particular role. And it has a huge impact. So, for the people who have detailed work experience, they do get way more profile views and more messages. And what it also means is that more and more companies now are accepting, like I would say the vast majority of companies that we're working with that are, over 200 employees in size, are accepting LinkedIn profiles as their resume, or instead of an actual resume. So if this is up to date for you, it makes the job seeking process much quicker for you as you apply for roles. So in terms of like the details, there's kind of like you can there's a number of different kind of drop-down menus and things like that there. The company name I would call out it's important to find the right one. Sorry. Just simply because when a company that you're working with, or an organization you're working with, if you marry up the right account, then you get their, the brand or their logo on the on your page, and so it can make it more recognizable for people, in terms of like who you are working for. The last thing I would call out is around that creator mode. So, for people who are looking to showcase their content, it gives you that space here in LinkedIn. So you can turn on what they call creator mode, it signals again to people that you might be worth following. So you can have people that connect with you, and then you see their their information will pop up in your feed, so you can see what they're doing and what they're sharing. But if you don't, we would recommend that you connect with the people that you know, because quality is much better than quantity. What you don't want is to go into your feed, and as you're going down, it doesn't connect with you because you don't know who these people are that are sharing what they're doing, or they're not necessarily sharing information that's relevant to you. So it's very much about having a good quality to your connections rather than that the quantity piece. And what that will mean is, alternatively, follower, what you may want is, somebody may want to follow you because you create content, but you may not necessarily want to be connected with them. But what you can do is ask them to follow you instead. So in that respect, they get to see your posts and what you're putting out into the platform, but you won't necessarily then see their posts as well, but you're not going to be connected with them in that way. So it's very much if you want to create that audience. So that's very much there. The other thing I would call out is particularly relevant to this group is around volunteer experience. People who do have that in their profile are 6 times more likely to get views than those that don't. It's again kind of skills get inferred by the type of volunteer experience that you have, and it very much kind of then becomes a reflection of you and your entire your entire self. Our work, like what I do at LinkedIn is a small proportion of what I do across my daily life, and so having the opportunity to put the volunteer experience there allows people to see that part as well. So that's super important. On the skills, like I said, there's explicit and implied skills. So you can put in explicitly the skills that you have. This is an area that I find that people don't necessarily keep as up to date as the other sections. Often they'll forget to kind of put up the skills that, if how your skill set has grown from 1 year to 2 years down the track. Like for a lot of us, we wouldn't have been using Zoom or managing remote teams as an example as much as we are today, but we're all experts on it at this stage. But I would question how many people have really put that into their profile. And where it's important is that for people who are searching for that, like the recruiters who are looking for people, like for example, managing remote teams, because it might be a requirement in a job description, you won't be coming up in that search because you haven't specified it on your profile. So make sure that particularly where you've got digital skills, that are these digital skills are incredibly important for you to explicitly put in your profile, because to what Julie was calling out earlier, the digital skills are fundamentally important, and the challenge with them is that they change dramatically in very short periods of time. So the shelf life of digital skills is quite short, as organizations, like say, but the likes of Microsoft, for example, like Teams would go through an update on a monthly basis. So the Teams that you would use today is very different from the Teams that you started with 2 years ago. And so as a result, like it's, those skills, the software will change, and they're looking for people that have those skills. That's why recruiters look for those digital skills explicitly. So make sure that they're on your profile. And this is something I would really call out for graduates. So we recently did some research on LinkedIn data. It covered 4.5 million graduates from the last 5 years, and it was from countries like UK, UAE, France, Spain was not in it, Benelux, Ireland, for example. So it was about 7 or 8 countries in Europe and the Middle East. And graduates who had digital skills explicitly on their profile were 38% more likely to be employed than those that didn't. So it is so important, particularly for the graduates, to get those digital skills there. What I would say, the other thing is that this is all very much something within your control in terms of what gets viewed. So you can control who endorses you, you can control what skills come up on your profile. So you may necessarily, like for example, if you're a senior leader, you may not necessarily want Microsoft Excel to be one of your skills that's on your profile, because it might not necessarily speak to the skill set that you would have. So you curate what skills do you want to show up on your profile, and you pick the top 5 that you want to be known for on your profile, but the other ones just sit in the back. So people can go and see the full list if they want, but you have the control, and that's true to be said of pretty much every feature on LinkedIn. Like we've won the most trusted platform for about 7 years in a row. I might be overestimating; it might be 5, but it's felt like forever, and that's because the degree of control that we put in the hands of each member, and of course the fact that we always focus on a members first approach on everything that we do. So that's where you've got full control over everything. So the same thing goes with the skills. So my key message here is, update your skills list. Make sure that especially the digital skills that you have, that they're reflected there on your profile, and then customize what you want people to see and what you want others to be able to endorse you for. So you've got that in your hands. Recommendations. Again, this is something that I would say, I'll take to do it, but I don't do it myself. But I should. But the recommendations are a great way to be able to get that reference on your LinkedIn profile. You can give and you can receive. So if you're giving a recommendation, the other person has to approve that before it's put on their profile. So again, you've that control. If you want to ask, say, 5 people to do it, but you want to maybe quality control it before it goes up on your profile, you have the ability to do that. So it's good. It is a really powerful, I don't have any data on it, but I know that as a hiring manager myself, when I see those recommendations, I tend to read them on people's profiles before I, when we're at the interview stage or anything like that, because it's always interesting to see how others are describing them. But that's a good function that I would call out. And then, of course, the basics, which is like the must-haves, which is your location. Your location is one of those that I would call out that's similar to the updating of the industry. So if you want to work in a different location, there's no harm in updating your profile for that location, because I'm not so sure how applicable it is now, given how prevalent remote work is. But in the past, what recruiters would have been very focused on a geographic area. So if you were somebody that was based in London, but you wanted to work in Munich, you wouldn't come up in a lot of recruiter searches, because they weren't looking at people in London, they were only looking in Germany. So if you were somebody that wanted to, let's say, you're in London right now and you want to work in Newcastle, I'd suggest updating your location profile so that you are coming up then in those geographic searches that the recruiters can do, because they will often filter by location. Education is an obvious one. So the education qualifications that you have should be included in your profile, and you have the choice to put them at the top or down at the bottom of the profile. For example, I'm currently studying at Warwick doing their MBA, and so I have that up at the top of my profile. And it's all very much searchable. Very important for recent graduates as well. Recruiters can search for people based on like the number of years experience that they have or the year in which they graduated. So it's a way in which they often look for talent that's graduate level for roles that they have. And then, of course, publications is the posts that you make or articles that you would post on LinkedIn. And your accomplishments would often be like, have you won an award or been recognized? There's a section there on your profile that allows you to put in those. So like I was saying, people are coming to LinkedIn on a daily basis for a myriad of reasons. It's, staying, like, for example, for me, I reached out to two ex-colleagues two people that were working for me a couple of months ago, who've both gone into new roles over the last couple of weeks. So I reached out to them today to say, hi, how's everything getting on? Hope yous are well. I would also be looking at checking out my feed to see, what are people within my network commenting about? Is there any kind of often to be like, things that they would be highlighting, big news within their career or that their company is doing. And so in that way, I'm using it to learn more about the organizations that I'm interested in. And so what I would say is that it's super important to curate, again, the quality of your network and what you're following, because it'll determine your feed, and that's where an awful lot of your value is going to come from, that feed. So what I would say is that the three big ones are, you can follow companies. What we actually find is that it normally takes somebody for about 7 months from the point that when a role is filled at a corporate level. Let's say Amazon fills a job. It's the person who's who applied for that role, got that role, and accepted that role and started with Amazon, started to engage with Amazon about 7 months prior to taking that role. That's how long it takes for people to learn more, to get interested in it. And often that comes from following the company, interacting or being connected with employees from that organization. Because what you see then is you're seeing snippets of what the culture is like at that company. And particularly now with everything that's going on, people are just so conscious about, and I think more purposeful about the life they want to lead, how much flexibility they want, how much control do they want, what's the type of job that they want to do. And engaging, following the company and following employees that work in that company are a great way to be able to see that firsthand, because they'll talk about it. And so what I would suggest is that if there's companies that you're interested in, you can search for them on LinkedIn and you can follow them, and their posts and their jobs will pop up in your feed. That's also on an academic level as well. So universities, you can follow the schools. And so when they're posting about accomplishments or awards that the university has received, or what they're doing for their students, or jobs again that are coming up in the organization, you'll see all that too. Influencers as well. So there's a lot of people, like I was saying, that are using LinkedIn to share topics, trends, insights. So rather than necessarily connecting with them, because I don't know if I connected with Bill Gates whether he'd be accepting my request, but I can follow him, and so I can see what he's posting. I can hear what he's sharing in my feed in that respect. So it's really good to be able to, hear industry news, for example, making sure that you're following influencers like, I can never remember his first name, but the Mr. Khan that invented the Khan Academy, for example, or others that are involved in education, be able to kind of hear their perspective on what's happening in real time is brilliant. This one here then is just kind of to talk about the search filters. So the search on LinkedIn is, very advanced. It's you can filter down in a by location or by experience level, industry, for example. So it's very much worth, what you're looking for, you will be able to find on LinkedIn in terms of people to follow or organizations to follow. So that's the thing that I would call out there. Is just, it's worth kind of having a play around and seeing who and what you want to be putting into your feed, and the algorithm as well will recommend things, companies and people based on what you're following already or what you're posting about. So the AI on the back end is very powerful as well. So on that, I will stop talking. I'll stop sharing as well. So if I can find my little screen, here we go. And happy to take Any questions?
Thank you. That was really a great talk, Nicola. We were wondering as a group how to use the search engine for job titles. So we have seen an improvement with LinkedIn with the algorithm, or I don't know what I'm talking about actually. But if a job title is not well, if you're not certain what job title you're looking for next, how can you use that search engine to the best of your ability?
I understand. And so could you give me an example just so that I can conceptualize it a bit more? Not a fictitious person called Wendy is currently working in like learning and technology, and she wants to move into HR, that kind of thing. Yeah. Or even if she wants to be a learning technologist, but maybe there's a variety of roles within learning technology, it can be difficult to know, okay, this is what I want. So let me show you. So this is actually where you would see, just so so you guys would know, you can see the scale of just as a by the by, you can see on the analytics side when you're in LinkedIn just how much impact your posts can have. Like just the last post that I had there, 2,700 people saw it. So it just shows like the scale of the impact once you post that in there. So if I go to jobs, what we'll do now, mine is a wee bit funny because LinkedIn people have access to premium job licenses, and slightly different. And it's been 5 years now since I've actually not had a premium license. So there's times where I may talk about a function. I'm like, this is great, but it's a premium function. For me, my unofficial thing would be buy premium when you're job seeking, but you may not necessarily want it all the time. But it is 100% worth it when you're job seeking. Because the extra functionality is brilliant. But if you're not actively, I would say you're grand with the free one. But for those couple of months, if you are looking for opportunities, it's brilliant. And I'll show you in a second why. So with the job searches, if you go into, so if I show you LinkedIn, and up here you've got all the different sections. So if you go to jobs, here you can search the jobs you want. So let's say head sales. So it defaults to your country here, but you can obviously change that. If you're not, if you don't know what type of job, like the job description that you're looking for, what I would suggest is just being more general in the search function up here. Because let's say if you have, say, learning technology, Ireland would be very small if I do that. So I'm going to do this. The filters here, I'm sorry, I don't know if you can see that. Here it is. Gives you a range of ways to filter down what you're looking at. So, for example, you might be more open to the job title. You know, it might be a bit broad, but you might be very specific about the location or the industry in which that role is in and job function. The great thing about all of these filters, they have to be updated by the recruiter when they post the job. So they tend to be quite accurate. The only one that I would say use with a pinch of salt is the experience level one, because that can often come down to one person's description of a director level role or an executive role could be different to somebody else's. So you might find that if you were to filter based on this, you might find yourself missing jobs that you would be interested in just simply because they've tagged it in the wrong way. But everything else tends to work out okay. The important one here that a lot of people are interested in is, is it an on-site job? Is it remote or is it hybrid? So what's the flexibility that the employer is looking for at the moment? And so then you've got your job titles here. Now, at the moment, it's a fairly broad search. So I've just looked at learning technology. It's bringing back 9,500 results in the UK alone. And as you can see here, there's a big variety of the types of organizations and the role descriptions here. What I would say is this is very much personalized to my profile. So the reason why I'm getting Workday, for example, as the first one is that it sounds like it's very aligned to my existing job. So it's a senior director level role in an IT company, and it's focusing on education. So, you know, it's prioritizing what I see here based on my profile and what it thinks that I'd be interested in seeing. So the further you go down the list, the less likely, or the algorithm is putting jobs in there that it feels be less likely for you to be interested in. So that's another one to kind of call out. In the UK as well, the recruiters, it's not available in Ireland, but in the UK they put the job salary ranges in here as well, so you can also look at that. And what I would also say is that as you filter these out, so they're dynamic fields. So by that what I mean is, let's say you're like, I want it to be full-time, I want it to be a hybrid role or remote, and I want to be in London. And I want to stay in higher education or education. Okay, so it's given me 3 results that have all of those filters aligned. So I've got these 3 that come up, which is not good for my example. So I'm going to pull out some of the filters here to get rid of this. And all of a sudden, taking away the remote and hybrid, take me up to 246 roles. So for me, what I can then do is I can go back down here to title, and all of a sudden the titles that were there before have changed completely because it's a dynamic field. So as I prioritize that I want to be in education, higher education, or primary and secondary education, it's giving me then the most common titles based on that. So what I would say to your, I don't know if that's the perfect answer for you, but what I would say is that the search algorithm is, number one, the personalization is very strong and it's based on what you put in your profile. So the more your profile reflects you, the better the quality of everything else. And then the filters allow you to get down to where you want. But there is at times an imperfection to the process. So I would say that especially if you were job seeking, I would start with a wide net and then start to narrow it down. And then you've got, like, once you know the companies you want to follow and the types of roles, you can create alerts, which I should also show you. Which is here. If you go into jobs, you can create a job alert for that based on the type of role that you're looking for and the types of like filters or companies that you are interested in seeing. So in that respect, you can get emails or prompts as well for ones that you might be interested in hearing about.
Great, that's very, very very helpful. Thank you very much.
Do we have the other group? Do you have a question from the other group?
Yeah, we had a conversation more so, but I thought of one when I came back because we discussed LinkedIn Learning, and we were just wondering how if can LinkedIn Learning help with the profile as well as my own professional development?
Oh yeah, it really helps. Let me share the screen again. So this is my profile, right? And so based on here are the skills that I have based on what I've put in. Let's say, and this is really important as well, especially for the younger graduates. Let's say they know what job they want to get into, but they may not necessarily know the skills they need to get to that job, right? So I'm just going to click somebody. Actually, my old boss. So if I go into somebody else's profile, I can see down here where, yeah. So what they do is they look at the skills that this person has, and they say, and it basically gives you a curated list. They've changed the messaging up the top here, but what they're actually doing is this person has these skills, and if it matches the skills that person has with the courses on LinkedIn Learning. And so you can have a look at that and say, well, okay, well, if I want to be Jeff Matthews, here are the skills that Jeff has that has helped him in his career, and it shows me how to get it. The other thing where it's really useful is, again, if we go into a job role, must be wrong. Oh yeah. Sorry, here it is. So on they keep moving these things around. So on the what they'll also do on LinkedIn is that when you're looking at the job ads, they'll also curate and recommend some content based on the skills that are required in the ads, because the recruiter puts in the skills that they want from the ad, but also the LinkedIn algorithm takes implicit data from the job title and from the content, like the summary of the job description itself, and it will recommend courses as a result. What will also happen is that when you're in LinkedIn itself and you scroll down, you'll get video recommendations. Let me see, there should be one. That's not it. But what you will find as you go through your profile, your feed, is that the algorithm is always looking to recommend and push things that are relevant to you too. So let's say, for example, if there's something you're following and it's a cause that you're interested in and you're talking about it, they will bring the courses that are aligned to that and put it into your feed. And it will also autoplay, so that you might find that you've watched 3 minutes of it already before you've realized, oh God, I'm in a LinkedIn Learning course and there's more that I want to learn about it. So it's quite a subtle way of just trying to make always presenting the right, most relevant content for you. But to do it in ways that you're not even necessarily thinking that you're looking for it. It's just being presented to you. And for anybody that has, say, works in a school or a university that has LinkedIn Learning licenses, that all happens to the benefit of the students as well. So, if and the staff indeed that are using it for staff development, so they're benefiting from that too.
Lots of questions, and I'm sure you'll have loads more. I'm sure Nicola will answer those later. Or if anybody's got anything burning, just we'll be sending a follow-up email after this because we've got another one coming, another talk, 21st of January, and that's brand new, personal branding and why it's important. That really follows on very similarly from, getting your professional digital profile right, but it's more holistic about that whole brand online, not just one platform, the whole thing. That's for students and for yourself, obviously, for moving forward. I was just thinking whilst you were talking, I was thinking, you used to say that GCHQ or, MFI, not MFI, yeah, that's right, MA5, not MFI, that's a different thing altogether, was in the background looking at and listening to what you were saying. Now I'm thinking to myself, it's not Big Brother, it's not MI5, but it's LinkedIn Learning and their algorithm that's looking after you in the background and finding out what you're doing. It's amazing. But that brings it really right back to what Technicamps is doing, that grassroots. They haven't got the algorithm, you haven't got the programmers, you haven't got the information, you haven't got the software, and you haven't got this wonderful platform that you've demonstrated today. So it links in nicely with what we've got as an ethos at the beginning. Yeah. So big thank you to Nicola. Thank you for sharing all about LinkedIn. There's a lot there. Surprising how much information. Yeah, a big round of applause. I think that's definitely. And well done to everybody who stayed right to the end and those who kept their cameras on right the way through. I'm always so proud of you when you do that. Great. So join us again if you can. Share the word there what we're doing. I think Laura's going to host it for us in January. So great. And thank you very much, Nicola, for all that you've shared with us today through Path.